glad you're here. Please, come in and have a seat. Let's see where the conversation takes us. So I want to ask you a question. Well, better, I want to have a conversation with you about questions. I mean, it seems like it should be a relatively simple, straightforward topic, right? A question. What's a question? It's words you string together to get and gather information, usually ending with a funny looking little curly Q of a mark called a question mark. But that's a really oversimplified view or overly simplistic view of what a question really is. It seems like it should be straightforward. It seems incredibly simple, but honestly, a good question is uniquely powerful, like profoundly powerful, if you really stop and think about it, because a well-placed question can unlock the next tier in a relationship. And a poorly placed question can destroy trust. So what you ask and how you ask it really matters, because it can have an unanticipated impact on your relationships. And I think that in order to really understand good relationships and good connections, that we want to make sure we understand good questions. So let's talk a little bit about questions. Okay? Because most of us think of questions as far as information gathering. It's the kind of questions you ask to get information out of people. But there are also questions that we can ask that create connection and invite people to share more of themselves with you, to take the relationship a little deeper. The right question in the right moment can completely change the conversation, deepen the relationships. A good question at just the right place in time in history can prevent an argument, and it can also help somebody feel fully seen and acknowledged. And the wrong question, well, that can shut the whole conversation down completely and make sure that you get nowhere. So today, we are exploring the power of a well-placed question, and we're going to learn how to ask better questions to transform the relationships in our lives. So, and just in case you're noticing a difference in my voice, I'm going to bring this up because I hear the difference in my voice today, and I just want to take a moment and acknowledge it. Recording this today is June 6th. Last night, June 5th, the show I've been directing for the last several months opened. So that means that last week was Tech Week. And if anybody knows anything about theater, Tech Week has a nickname in the theater world. It is often called Hell Week because it is long days, late nights, and scrambling to get all of the final details to come together for the show. So we had Tech Week into opening night, and I got all of 2, maybe 3 hours of sleep last night. So you are hearing a little fatigue in my voice, but that's okay. It's okay. But if it cracks or gives out, that is why. I am fine. I promise. I just need to catch up a little bit on my rest, and that will happen after opening weekend. So, let's see. Where were we? Asking good questions matters more than we give it credit. And here's what tends to happen. Most people will focus on the answers, having the right answer, finding the right answer, thinking about what they're going to say when they get a chance to give their answer. But in healthy relationships, we can deepen more by asking the right questions. See, the way it breaks down, it's like this. So when I ask questions, that communicates my curiosity. It lets me know that I want to get to know you a little bit more. I want to understand you more. I want to know where you come from, what you've experienced, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. Right? What your background is, what stories you like, what music you like, what colors make you happy. Like, we ask questions so that we can learn about a person's background, about where they were before we encountered them, where they came from. That curiosity communicates to the person we're asking the questions to that we care about them, because why else would we take the time to ask questions about their past, about their background, about their interests, right? So questions communicate curiosity, and curiosity, well, that communicates care. And care builds connection. When I care about you and you know that I care about you, that shows my investment in you. And when this parasympathetic system is working effectively and correctly, when you know that I care about you, it helps you to care about me. And when we care about each other, we work towards common goals, common projects, and towards shared values and things like that. Right? So questions lead to curiosity. Curiosity communicates care. Care builds connection. People rarely remember the specific advice you give them. I mean, yeah, do profound bits stick here and there, but we receive a lot more advice than we retain. We receive a lot more advice than we retain on a good day. But what we remember is how people make us feel. If they make us feel seen, if they make us feel valued, if they make us feel understood, right? These are things that build and strengthen our connections to each other. People remember how you make them feel. So I want you to stop and think. Let's take it to the workplace, okay? Let's go to the workplace. In our workplaces, we often encounter challenges, obstacles we need to overcome in order to get our assignments done, to get our job done. Now, when you are working your way through a problem, which of these responses helps you grow and learn? All right? Having your boss walk up to you and go, you know what you should do? You should do this, that, then the other. Okay, so in that moment, you might know exactly what to do, but your ability to retain that and then apply it to the next situation, there's no guarantees. Whereas if your boss walks up to you and says, okay, looking at this situation, what do you think your next steps would be? And then gives you a moment to contemplate that, to consider what needs to be done and how the steps involved to get it done and what you need to do next. When you're given the opportunity to say, okay, so I think our next steps would be this, then that, and then the other. And then your boss goes, great plan, do that. Now you've had the opportunity to learn from that experience, to take ownership of that project, and that's growth. That's where growth happens, right? So, and this can be applied not just in our workplace. Let's parents, moms, dads. Let's think about those teenagers, right? Let's think about those teenagers. How much does your teenager love it when you tell them what they need to do, what they should do, and what they have to do? Specifically in those orders, right? Hate it, despise it, and resent you for all your worth? Did I get those right? I think I did. Maybe the order's wrong, but I think I got all the right responses. Okay. Whereas when they're faced with the problem or when they're faced with a project, instead of telling them, first you should do this and then you should do that. First you make an outline and then you fill in your details and then you put in your research. And when was the last time you tried telling a teenager what to do? Because they don't receive that well, seeing as how they know everything. So it can be a real challenge when you try to give them implicit direction like that. Whereas if you turn it into a conversation where you're asking them questions about what they think they should do next and what their thoughts on why that's the next best step. And if that weren't their next step, what else might their next step be? Right? Questions like that. Instead of saying, no, you're wrong, say, okay, well, that's one way you could do it. Let's brainstorm some other ways. What are some other next steps you could take? And then let's see which is the best next step to take. And we turn it into a discussion as opposed to it being a dictatorship where now I'm taking away their ownership. I'm taking away their ability to learn. And instead what I'm doing is I'm foisting my knowledge on them instead of allowing them to grow their own knowledge, grow their own experience. So phrasing it and bringing it into a question form and a productive question, it gives them far more agency in their growth path and in their decision making. And I think we all know the beautiful thing that happens when we make a decision for ourselves and it turns out to be the right decision. Well, that's where self-worth comes from. That's where self-confidence comes from. That's where our ability to make future decisions comes from, is from the decisions we've made in the past. If we do not have the opportunity to exercise our decision making, we don't get the opportunity to get good at it. And then we don't trust our decisions. And we feel like we have to have outside validation in order to stand behind our own decision because we never practiced decision making along the way. Because I don't know about you guys, my mom wasn't a big one on asking me what I thought I should do next. She was much more into the whole yelling at me on what I should have done or what I'm gonna do, as opposed to talking to me about what I should do and how I might learn from it. So, man, some of my lessons came way later in life than they should have because I didn't get to exercise that decision making until I was out on my own. Right? And we can do better for our kids by letting them practice those skills in our home under our supervision, where we can help guide them through learning how to understand a situation and make the best of it. So, the core of most of our conflicts in relationships happen because we assume we know why people are doing what they're doing. We assume we understand their motivations and their thought processes. And we make assumptions based on the information that we have and based on what we observe. But inevitably, and every time, we're missing key and core pieces of information. And when we start writing stories in our head about people's motivations and why they're doing what they're doing, when we're lacking key important details, it means we're making those assumptions in error, meaning the assumptions themselves are erroneous. Because if I am making an assumption based on a limited subset of facts and not all of the information, then I can't be assuming correctly because I don't know all of the information. We interpret people's word choices based on our experience and our past traumas. And here's the thing, language is nuanced. And words and phrases have different meanings based on the region where it's said. For instance, if you are somewhere in New England of the United States, right? That northern corridor, and somebody says, bless their heart, they are, in general, wishing something well upon that person. In the South, those same words can have a drastically different meaning. That bless your heart can be everything from, oh, look at Bobo's little clown, to, aren't you just a stupid heifer? It can mean any and all of those things and several other things in between, none of which are complimentary, right? Regionality changes the meaning of things. Personal experience can change the meaning of things. And sometimes just a person's own reading comprehension and vocabulary can impact how effectively they communicate. Now, I want to be clear when I say this. My husband is an intelligent man. I love him to pieces. And he is a for shit communicator. I say that with all of the love and the respect. And baby, I know you listen. I know you're hearing this. No, I love you. But your word choice at times, atrocious. He often will say things in such a way that my initial reaction is to be angry. And I have learned that with him, the way he says it isn't necessarily how he means it. And so I have learned that in our marriage, in order to stay on an even keel, that when he says something that causes an emotional reaction in me, rather than try to interpret what he's trying to tell me, I turn it around and I tell him exactly what I heard. And I will use real clear language when I tell him, what I heard you say was this. And that gives him an opportunity to jump on board and double down and say, yep, that's what I meant. Which he's done sometimes. Or it also gives him the chance to go, no, that's not how I meant that. I'm like, well, yeah, but that's what that word means. He goes, yeah, I didn't know that's what that meant. It's not how I meant it. Okay, fair enough. Right? It gives us a chance to, before I have a large emotional reaction to what he said, I want to make sure I really understood him. So if he's going to get the full heat blast from this furnace, that it's warranted. Right? I mean, the redhead isn't false advertising. And I don't want to pick a fight if we're not really having, well, let me put it this way. I don't throw the first punch. So if I'm going to have a big emotional reaction, you better have struck first. And that means I need to understand what you were really saying to me. And so there's a little responsibility on my part, knowing what I'm capable of, that if I'm going to unleash it, it needs to have been earned. That's where I take personal responsibility for what I'm capable of. Okay? And here's another great thing about the human mind. I love the way we think as a species. We'll fill in the blanks like a choose your, like a Mad Lib. We will fill in the blanks of our knowledge with the situation, with whatever supports the narrative or the story that we're telling ourselves about the situation. Okay? So, I have been cheated on in previous relationships. More than one occasion have I been cheated on. It hurts. It sucks. And that is one of the golden rules in my marriage with my husband. I don't do jealousy. If I can't trust you, I can't be with you. It's as simple as that, right? I don't play jealous games because I don't like me in that space. So I can't be around somebody who needs to feel that because I can't do it. I won't give the emotional energy to that. It's caustic and destructive, and I don't like it. So I don't engage in a relationship like that, which means that my husband and I have a very trust-based relationship. I trust him to go out in the world and be sensible and not make decisions that would hurt our relationship, and he trusts me to do the same. Now, with all of that being said, my husband and I have plans. We were going to go to a party. It was around Christmas time. It was going to be a Christmas party. And we had talked about it in the morning. He was going to come home, see if he could get up work a little bit early, come straight home, get ready so that we could drive the hour-plus distance to the Christmas party. Well, at some point during the day, he had made the decision he didn't want to go to the party, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. You want to go to the party? I can go to the party all by myself. I'm fine with that. I don't mind walking in solo. I am my own best company sometimes, so I'm good with that. But he didn't tell me. And then because he knew he wasn't going to the party, he made the decision that since it was still a few days before Christmas and he didn't have to rush home, that he could run some errands and do some Christmas shopping. All this time, he didn't tell me that he wasn't going to the party. So, as the time that he was supposed to get off work ticks by, and he's still showing up at work, he's still sitting at work, I try calling him, he doesn't answer his phone. I have Life 360, so I can see where he's at. Opened up the app, and I'm looking, and he's at work, and I'm like, well, he's been having some issue with his phone. Maybe he forgot to take his charger. Maybe that's why it's still sitting at work and he's on his way, but he's not home. And time is ticking by, and I really need to be leaving to go start the drive to the party that I have every intention of going to. But I don't know where my husband's at. He's supposed to be home. He's not home. I've not heard anything. And so my mind starts filling in the blanks. And the blanks I start filling in, he was in a car accident. He is in his vehicle on the side of the road in a ditch, bleeding out. He's dying somewhere on the road between here and work. He works 15 minutes from the house by vehicle. But I'm certain I'm going to encounter. So what do? I get in the car and I drive. I drive his route, looking for any cars off on the side of the road, any signs of accidents. I look in the parking lots of the grocery stores between home and work in case he stopped there, forgetting because sometimes he forgets things. It's not so, it wouldn't be the first time he forgot we have plans. So maybe that's the case. So I'm looking. Nope, he's not there. I get all the way to his work. He's not there. I go inside. No, he left a while ago. Left a while ago? What do you mean he left a while ago? He's still not answering his phone. His phone is still showing that he's at work. He is clearly not at work. I start driving back home. I get a notification on my Ring app. Guess who's walking through the front door with bags of purchases? He went shopping for Christmas because he decided he wasn't going to the party. He forgot to tell me. When he got home and didn't see me home, he thought everything was fine. He assumed I just left for the party. No big deal. I came walking through the door. I was not a happy camper because I had filled in all of the blanks. That my husband was injured. That was the only reason that I wouldn't know what was going on, that he wouldn't answer, that he wouldn't be where he was supposed to be. I had dark and twisted and terrible thoughts about how he was mangled and dying, and he was out Christmas shopping because he forgot to tell me that he had changed his mind about our plans. We had a conversation about the importance of communicating these things so it doesn't happen again. It was a loud, boisterous conversation between two adults who love each other. We both learned lessons that day, right? This is why we need to ask questions. Because I asked questions. They weren't necessarily questions designed to learn anything new or to build a connection. They were accusations dressed in question marks. How we ask questions can make a big difference, and we'll talk more about that as we continue along. But assumptions are like the termites in your relationship. They will eat the supporting structure from the inside out and leave you with nothing but the crumbling remains of a relationship. You cannot exist in a healthy relationship on assumptions. You have to communicate with each other, understand where each other is coming from, see each other authentically for who you really are, and make sure that you guys are operating on the same page and still playing for the same team towards the same goals. That's what relationships are, is working through our life's goals together, right? So questions can help create understanding instead of allowing your brain to do the story building that it will do in the absence of information. Okay. When we don't have information, our brains go into overdrive and they start making stuff up. Why? So that it makes sense to us in some form or fashion. So you send a text to a friend. They don't respond. Well, the first thing you might think is, well, maybe they're mad at me. Maybe that's why they're not responding. And then you start going back over all of the things that have gone on recently and what they might possibly be mad at you for. And when you can't think of any reason why they might be mad at you, then you start to get mad at them, because how dare they be mad at you if there's no reason? And they're going to just ignore your text. They're going to punish you because they're mad at you when they have no reason to be mad, and you don't even know if they're actually mad. Or maybe it's not that they're mad. Maybe they just don't care about you anymore. Maybe they never cared about you. Maybe they're ignoring me because I just don't matter. But see, that's your insecurity talking. And when did that bitch get a voice? Tell her to shut up. right? You're insecure. They don't need to have a voice in every conversation. All right? Maybe they're not mad at you. Maybe they do care. Maybe they're not even ignoring you. Maybe they're just overwhelmed with their own shit in their own lives, their job and their spouse or their partner or their kids or their parents or all of the things that can overwhelm us, right? Maybe their phone died. Technology can fail you. Maybe they got busy and forgot. Maybe that text message came in while they were driving and they saw the notification, and maybe the car even read the message out loud, because some of them will do that for you. And they thought about a clever response, and then somebody almost pulled out in front of them and they had to slam on their brakes, and they had to run a couple of errands and get that stuff picked up before they got to their destination. And then when they sat down and they could actually grab the phone and respond to you, they weren't thinking about it anymore. And life got busy. And they just didn't. But it had nothing to do with you. It's just sometimes that shit happens. Or maybe they simply have ADHD and forgot. Guilty. That is often why I didn't text you back, just so you know. Because the message came in at an inopportune time and I couldn't respond in that moment. And then I just didn't think about it when I could respond, because that's how an ADHD brain just works sometimes. Right? So instead of asking your friend when you see them, why are you ignoring my text? Don't I matter to you? Don't you care about me at all? You could say, hey, is everything okay? I texted the other day and I didn't hear from you. And then they're now invited to share what was going on in their world and why they couldn't respond to you in the moment you wanted them. Because, the people around us are not simply available on demand like an avatar in a video game. It doesn't work that way. Okay? When we stop and we ask meaningful questions, it helps slow our emotional reaction. And let me tell you guys, this one is a rule that I personally live by every single day. The bigger my emotional response is to a situation, the more questions I have to ask to understand why before I give an emotional response. Because I know my childhood was traumatic. I know that I have unresolved issues that can be triggered benignly by people, meaning that they didn't have malicious or cancerous intent. They did something perfectly reasonable, but I'm having a reaction to it. And folks, that happens all the time. And as much as we like to say, oh, that triggers me. Yeah, great. It's good you know what triggers you. Triggers aren't for other people to manage. Triggers are for us to manage. We manage our own triggers. It's about identifying what triggers you have and either removing yourself from those situations or learning to temper your results so that they're socially acceptable. All right? Our triggers aren't for other people to tiptoe around. It's for us to safeguard. We misunderstand what identifying our triggers means. Okay? Just like if you're allergic to peanuts doesn't mean I never get to have a peanut butter sandwich again. Okay? That is not how that works. It means that I'll keep my peanuts to myself and I don't force them on you. But it's up to you to remove yourself from the peanut situation. Right? I'm not going to be over here throwing peanuts at you. But if you're intentionally walking in to the peanut butter spreadery, that's on you. I don't know what a peanut butter spreadery is. It just came to me. I'm personally picturing like a chocolatier store, but all peanut butter. And now I kind of want that to really be a thing. All right, internet, make it a thing. You've got your assignment now. We need a peanut buttery. Right? Okay. Anyway, moving on. Oh, when we can slow our emotional reactions and better manage our emotional responses, we reduce misunderstandings. And when we reduce misunderstandings, we improve our communication. When we improve our communication, our relationships get better. It creates opportunity for clarity in our communication. So, how many conflicts in your life began because someone assumed rather than asked? We're going to let that one just sit for a minute. How many conflicts in your life began because someone assumed rather than asked? So this is an anecdote from a friend of the podcast, has a teenager. And this teenager has a habit of storming into the house, high energy, high intensity, focused, stomps through the house, throws their belongings into a heap on a table, on a chair, on the sofa, wherever they land, and storms off, walks past greetings, requests for information, acknowledgments of existence, and then emerges a few moments later. And I mean, imagine you are in your home, maybe prepping dinner, maybe wrapping up the day's works, and somebody storms in, doesn't say a word to you, stomps past you. Are you feeling highly respected? My guess is no. I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say that if you're a parent, you may even have a spike in your own personal cortisol levels, right? You feel yourself reactive to this onslaught of energy that is just whipped through your peaceful home in a flurry of motion and disrespect. And so you greet said child, teenager, what the hell's your problem? He's slamming doors and you can't even say hello to somebody when you walk into the house. How is that to greet anybody? And then the teenager, being a teenager, matches your energy. And now you are escalating back and forth until you're screaming at each other and the teenager says, I hate you. I don't even want to live here anymore. Well, that's one way that situation can go. And it's the way that situation went quite a few times over, we'll call it a few years. Until a question got asked. What is with you when you walk through this house like that? Just storm in. You can't even acknowledge anybody. You can't say anything. What is going on? And do you know what the child responds? I had to pee really bad. I had to pee really bad? I had to pee really bad. Multiple times over multiple years that the aversion to public restrooms had the child holding their bladder until they got home. And ladies, And I think it happens to you gentlemen too. You can be fine all day long until you know you are in proximity to a clean bathroom, your bathroom, and then all of the sudden, the thought of controlling it all for a second longer results in nothing but excruciating dagger-like pain to the bladder if you don't rush to the restroom to relieve yourself. So yeah, they storm in, all intensity, pure focus, trying to clasp the bladder shut for just a few more seconds till you safely make it into the restroom. And when you finally have your release, your relief, and you step out, able to breathe, ready to greet your family, only to be attacked for how you walked through the door. So, of course, you match energy because you're a teenager and you haven't learned how to regulate your emotions yet. But what was the parent's excuse? Well, we all get an opportunity to grow. It's never too late, right? And it was the levying of a couple of quality questions at just the right time that cracked the code on the overwrought teenager arriving home. And now, instead of expecting to be greeted upon arrival, we make a hole, clear a path, let her through, right? And she tries to modulate the slamming of the door and the intensity of the entrance, right? Because we all know what the goal is now. All right, we're going to alleviate the discomfort, and then we can engage like civilized human beings. But it's all about the quality of the question, my friend. Why do you come in like that? And a little understanding can go a long way in strengthening our relationships. But let's talk about the quality of our questions, because there is a difference between curious questions, questions that we ask because we are genuinely wanting to learn new stuff, and loaded questions. You know, the ones with a purpose, like a mission statement. The ones that we like to refer to as accusations in disguise. They're wearing question mark like a mask. Okay? Loaded questions might sound something like, why would you do that? What were you thinking? Don't you even care? As opposed to a question steeped in curiosity. Can you help me understand what happened? What I see doesn't make sense to me. Can you explain what I'm not seeing? How did we get here? What was going through your mind when you were deciding on this course of action? Trying to understand, not trying to judge, right? And guys, tone matters when you ask your questions. If you phrase your question like a statement, it's not really a question. What was important to you in that moment? This one can really be helpful, especially if you're trying to get to, the bottom of what's going on between a pair of people, is to understand what each person involved in that conflict is, what their motivation is. What are they trying to accomplish in this communication or in this series of actions? Like, what are you doing? What's important here? People can feel the difference between a loaded question and a curious question. One seeks understanding, the other is seeking conviction, right? So before asking the question, I need you to ask yourself, what exactly is it that I'm trying to understand? Or am I trying to prove something here? Now, I can't answer that question for you. Only you know what motivates you. So, most conversations that we have are very surface level, and they stay surface level because we move through this world asking ourselves very, very surface level questions. And I am beating this thing up today. I don't know why I feel the need to abuse my microphone the way I do. I'm going to try to control myself. So, surface level questions. These are the benign ones that we encounter, the casuals that we can answer in a simple yes or no or a short phrase. How is work? It's good. Oh, it's going all right. How's your day? Oh, it's great out today. Beautiful weather, or it's a hot one. Awfully wet, isn't it? Right? Or this one's great. What's new? Oh, nothing. Same old, same old. What are we really learning about people when we ask these questions? We're not really challenging anybody to think in how they answer it. In fact, we're usually, when we ask this level of question, the less thought they put into the answer, the better, right? It's not that they're bad questions. They're just predictable, boring. So, how do we go deeper? That's what she said. Because we all love it when we can go a little deeper. That's what she said. So here are some questions that'll really help you get to the full depth of the conversation. That's what she said. What was the best part of your day? This one's going to make you stop and think, okay? What was good, better, best about my day? What challenged you today? Like, what made it a little exciting? What made you get creative? What made you think outside the box? What's something you've been thinking about lately? This one's cool because it makes people think about what they've been thinking. So as soon as you ask the question, they're going to have to stop and go, well, what have I been thinking? What brings you joy right now? My show opened last night. Audience laughter brings me joy right now. In this moment, emails from my son, instant joy. As soon as I see his email address in my inbox, instant joy before I've even read a single word of his message, because I know that means he's sitting at a computer at that moment and he's okay. That brings me joy. What's been weighing on you recently? Yeah, got some health concerns in the family we're thinking about. It's been weighing on us. But these are the kind of questions that require the person you're asking to actually consider their answer, to really delve in a little bit and figure out what's really going on. People crave deeper connection. They just don't know how to create it. Better questions create better conversations. Better conversations create better connections. So, one of the individuals who taught me the most about questions is my dear, dear friend, Jim Doctor. He's one of my favorite human beings on the planet. I love him to pieces. He was a mentor, a manager, a friend, and he really helped shape me both professionally and personally in ways that I don't even know if he fully understands. But I was in a dark place at work. I was not living up to my full potential at that time. I was still very much a baby trainer in the making. Inside the classroom, in front of the class, it's never been hard for me. That's the easy part. It's all of the admin stuff, like the entering stuff in the systems and the tracking and the making sure that everything gets updated and just all the minutia of the administrative aspects of the job. And because I wasn't focusing my attentions on those things the way I should have, of course, it reflected across my work in general. And my director at the time had decided that I was going to be her personal project. Boy, that was hard. I met with her weekly, and they were brutal. Every minute of my time had to be accounted for, and I had to document what I was working on and how I was working on it. And it was sucking the joy in the moment out of my work life. And I was venting my frustrations, and what I felt at the time was the inevitability of my termination for not meeting these impossible expectations by this dragon lady director. Hi, Deanna. If you're listening, love you, appreciate you. Ever grateful for everything you taught me. But in the moment, I thought she was the worst. And Jim sat me down and he started asking me questions about my career and the work that I was doing and my job and why I had that job. And he was using the Socratic method to help me come to some very important realizations. The Socratic method, for those who might not be familiar with that, is referring to the Greek philosopher Socrates, who believed in instruction through questioning. So he wouldn't tell you what he thought about a thing. He would ask you enough questions to take you to what he thought about it, so that from your perspective, you got yourself there. It's very interesting. Check it out sometime. But so he started asking me a series of questions about the work that I was doing and how I felt about it, and the fulfillment, and it was questions like, so why are you here? I'm like, because it's my job. But why this job? I'm like, because they hired me. He goes, but why did you apply here? And she just kept asking questions and questions and questions and pushing me to really, really think about the answers. And each layer and level of question got deeper. And he says, you say you love your work. Well, what about your work do you love? And I told him, the feeling of seeing somebody accomplish what they learned from me, to master what they've learned from me, and to take it and to do great things with it in their careers. And he's like, that's great. And helped me realize that everything I hated about the job that I did was exactly why I loved the job that I did. because it is everything that supports and reinforces that classroom connection, that everything I was fighting against was really uplifting. It was the structure behind the walls. That, yes, the paint on the walls is what makes the walls pretty, but it is the studs and the drywall and the fixtures that make it stable so that it can be pretty, right? And through that process, through that the questioning, he led me to a deeper understanding of why I needed to care about the administrative parts of the job and why all of that mattered, and how it, in the end, created a better classroom environment when I did the things outside of the classroom that were so important. And, it's one of those things that helped shape who I am as a trainer, as a professional, as a mentor today. So, when we embrace questions, it gives us a superpower in managing conflict, right? When we master how we question, we can de-escalate issues. Well, if we're going to discuss the one side of the coin, I suppose I should throw out the other side as well, that if you want to, you can also use questioning to escalate situations. All great power requires great responsibility, because where there is light magic, there is dark magic. All right. What we can do to strengthen and build relationships, we can also do to damage them. So it's important to understand our power and to wield it responsibly. But some questions that we can bring to the conversation in conflict to try to help de-escalate it are things like, what did you hear me say? Right? Because oftentimes misunderstandings can be simply, I didn't hear you correctly. Right? That there are a lot of words that sound like other words. And if we're not watching each other speak and really focused in, it is very easy to misunderstand somebody, to simply mishear them. So asking, what did you hear me say, gives us an opportunity to level the playing field before the disagreement even kicks off. Then you can always ask the question, okay, what am I missing? Based on what I understand of the situation, it doesn't make sense. So there must be information I'm missing. What are the details I'm missing? What does this situation look like from your perspective? Ask somebody else to reframe it for you, because they see it an entirely different way. Right? What do you need from me right now? This one is really, really powerful if whatever the thing is behind you, right? If it is something that was done and cannot, from this point, be altered, right? So I can't, if I was supposed to be here at 5:00 and I didn't show up till 6:00, I can't get in a time machine and go back and be here at 5. That's not within my power. So, in order for us to move forward from here, what do you need from me? Where can we go from here to get to the past this point? That doesn't mean that we're saying showing up an hour late is now okay and acceptable. But it's saying we can't wind time back, so what can we do? All right. What outcome are you hoping for? Oh, this one is so, so powerful, especially if you're in the middle of somebody else's discussion, disagreement, argument, or situation. and you ask it to both parties involved. What is it that you are hoping for? What is the outcome that you're looking for? What is your priority in this situation? What these types of questions do is they shift us from defending to understanding. We want to make sure that we're not defensive. If we want to avoid being defensive whenever possible. We shouldn't be in a position where we need to defend ourselves. And if we are feeling defensive, that is one of those things that we have to wonder and check why. All right. Why am I feeling defensive? Why do I feel the need to explain myself? If you are an adult who is employed and is paying your own bills, shouldn't have to do a whole lot of explaining and justifying your decisions and actions, right? If you do, we need to look at why. And here's something I want to be crystal clear on. Understanding where someone is coming from does not mean that you agree with them. Understanding is not agreement. I can understand what you think and think that you're wrong. Both things can be true simultaneously. I can look at it and go, yep, I can understand why you think that. I can also say, I disagree with you. Okay. You can understand a person's perspective without adopting that perspective as your own. Just because you acknowledge that somebody has a different view of a thing does not negate the fact that you are allowed to have your own view of it. Now, because I'm me, you knew this part was coming. Some of the most important questions aren't questions that you're going to ask to other people. Some of these questions are questions you need to ask your own self. These are questions I ask myself all the time. This top one is probably the one I ask myself the most. Why did that upset me so much? If something makes me feel big feelings, powerful feelings, why? Why does that make you feel that way? For instance, if you are the type of person who has a giant reaction when somebody cancels plans last minute for a valid reason, if you trace that back, you will often find that the people who have really, really big reactions to canceled plans can trace that back to fathers who abandoned the home and didn't show up for their custody weekend. Sitting on the front porch, suitcase packed, waiting for dad to come and get you. Dad doesn't show. That can create a trigger so that when people cancel plans on you last minute, they're a piece of shit person. And they can't be trusted. They're now liars. And you'll find yourself having a big outsized reaction to that. You know, your first boyfriend cheats on you, and his excuse for every time he cancels plans with you is he has to work late. And years later, in a healthy relationship with somebody who is not cheating on you, and the minute they say, I have to work late, you're now suspicious. Not because they've done anything, but because your past trauma tells you that when somebody says they're working late, that really means they're screwing around, right? Does not mean that it's a fact just because it was your past. Okay? So why did that upset me so much? Really, when you have large emotional reaction to something that isn't really, in the grand scheme of things, a big deal, you got to trace it back. Why? Is it really the thing, or is it a fear of abandonment, fear of rejection? Is it loss of control? Is it past physical or emotional abuse? Like, what's it coming from? Okay. Oh, here's another one. And this one's another biggie, guys. Okay. What is the story I'm telling myself? I made mention earlier that when there are holes in a story, our brains, we don't even have to ask our brain to do the thing. It just does it all on its own. It starts plugging in those holes, filling in the story with details that you're fabricating in your brain. Okay? So, what story are you telling yourself? And how much of that do you actually have facts to back it up? And how much is just the story you're telling yourself, the narrative you're spinning? Is there another explanation that doesn't have your partner cheating or lying or, right? Is there another explanation that could also explain what happened? What is it that you're really afraid of? What am I really afraid of? Am I afraid of being laughed at? Am I afraid of being left? Am I afraid of being unloved? Am I afraid of losing control? Am I afraid of something being taken from me? What am I really afraid of? What need isn't being met that is leaving me feeling with this anxiety? Right? What responsibility do I own here? Guys, the path to growth is it is lit through self-awareness and self-reflection. You will lose the path to growth if you do not light it with self-reflection and self-awareness. You will grow in the wrong directions and not into who and what you want to be. All right? Self-awareness begins with self-inquiry. Growth starts with a question. Many breakthroughs didn't happen because someone gave us the answer. They happened because someone asked a question that we had never considered before. Sometimes people will ask us a question that changes how we see ourselves. Good mentor will ask a question that will alter how you see yourself for the better. All right. Oh, okay. Here's another. I will rip the Band-Aid back on this one. The question that I got asked was, why is it so important for everyone to like you? And I'm going to be honest with you. When that question was first posed to me, I did not know the answer. I didn't know the answer at all. I didn't know why. It was just vitally, critically important that everybody in my orbit like me. And it took time. It took some digging into the darkest recesses of my childhood memories to figure out why I needed everybody to be happy, why I needed everybody to laugh, why I needed everybody to like me and to think well of me. And it's because that's how I stayed safe. If you liked me, you wouldn't hurt me. If you liked me, I could use that to protect my sisters. My childhood was not a safe place. And so people pleasing and being liked and being funny and being witty were all tools that I used for safety. But that question altered how I saw myself. And I realized that all of that people pleasing was a performance that I wore to keep everybody else around me comfortable. And that it was okay for me to not worry about people liking me. That if they didn't like me, that's their problem, not mine. And, the answer to that question was formed in my youth, but I was almost 50 before I realized what the answer to that question was. So, when was the last time someone asked you a question that made you feel truly understood? And you shared an answer that helped you feel connected to them going forward? What assumptions are you currently making that could be replaced with a question? Where is there a dark spot in your relationship? Any relationship that you are currently filling with assumptions that you need to swap out for a good question? Do you tend to ask questions to understand, or do you ask questions to prove your point? I do both. You probably do a little of both too. What relationships in your life could benefit from deeper conversations? I'll answer that one. All of them. Every one of them. What questions do you need to ask yourself right now? You know you're avoiding some questions to yourself. Go look in the mirror. Be brave enough to ask yourself. So this week, I want you to take one relationship, just one, and I want you to intentionally ask one deeper question this week and see what happens to that conversation. It can be your spouse, your child, a coworker, a friend, even yourself. But I need you to listen to their answer to that question without fixing anything. Just listen. Listen without preparing your response. Just listen. Listen to understand. The quality of our relationships is often determined by the quality of our conversations, and the quality of our conversations is often determined by the quality of your questions. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say isn't a statement, it's a question, because a well-placed question doesn't just gather information. It opens doors, it builds trust, it creates understanding, and sometimes it just changes everything. It's been really great chatting with you today. I always appreciate it when you stop by. Make sure you follow me on social media at Angela's Living Room on all platforms. If you'd like to support the show, you can subscribe to my Patreon and see all the behind-the-scenes action and some extended episodes. Have a great day.